These are the top 3 checkmates I've seen in 30 years of playing chess. Enjoy. In the first game, white played pawn e4, pawn e5, we've got a standard opening, knight f6, and here white played one of the classical errors which lots of your opponents will play as well. They just castled. Looks like there's nothing wrong with this move, but if black knows how to make use of that, you can seize some advantage right away. Instead of just developing, you gotta grab this pawn on e4 boldly. It may seem as if white can play rook e1 and create some counter threats along the e-file, to your pawn and a king possibly, but you don't have to retreat this knight. You can instead go d5, hitting 2 birds with 1 pawn. You defend the knight and you counter-strike his bishop. Now white played the bishop back and black followed with bishop c5, this time hitting this pawn on f2. And white could defend it, but it looks very passive and bad for white, so he tried d4, which looks more interesting. Like captured it with a knight, and now white took this pawn on e5. Well, instead white could trade here, but that would be just an exchange. Black would still attack this pawn, and he's already 2 pawns up, so that certainly doesn't look very promising for white. That's why instead he decided to also grab something, knight takes e5. And black this time attacked with queen f6, putting pressure to the knight, as well as to this pawn on f2, which is also attacked by the knight. Which leads to a very interesting position. White decided to add more fun here and played bishop takes d5. Now everything is attacking everything, which makes the position really fascinating. Now what can black do? He took an f2, king goes to h1, and here is the position that I enjoy so much. Black played a truly demonic move, but moreover, that is the only move in the position because otherwise black is actually lost. Because white is also having a lot of threats and black's position is fragile. Look at this knight which is hanging, also the rook x-rays the king here. Our minor pieces are attacking, this square f7, therefore black really has to do something powerful right now, and he played a move which blows your mind. You can pause the video for a second and try to figure it out on your own, but it's a very difficult move to find. He played a move queen g1, sacrificing the queen, and it's really demonic because you just seem to play give up chess. You sacrifice the queen for no reason. Sometimes even if you manage to sacrifice the queen, you do that, let's say, by capturing something to expose his king and to then attack it. But now you just give up a queen and white can capture it either with the king or the rook and nothing else seems to change in the position. So it's completely crazy. But of course, there is a catch. White has to grab it with the king. It turns out that rook takes g1 is not possible due to this knight f2 smothered checkmate. White figured it out, and in the game, he indeed captured by the king. Now black followed up with knight e2, which is a check, as well as a discover check, and a double check from the knight as well, right? So white clearly needs to move the king. Once again, the king has to move here. If it goes to the corner after knight to f2, that is a true nightmare. But how about king moving right here? Can black continue his attack? Yeah, he keeps horsing around, this time with knight to g3 check. And after white accepts this sacrifice, knight takes g3 creates this really neat and nice checkmate position, and somehow black's 2 minor pieces defeated white's entire army. The next game started off similarly with the 2 knights game, knight f6, but this time white played knight g5, going for the right lever attack, attacking the square f7 twice with his knight as well as the bishop. Black covered it by pawn d5, pawn recaptures, and now there is a famous trap that black should not recapture here because that allows white for this knight takes f7 sacrifice followed by queen f3, and black is often in trouble. I'm sharing just in case because still a lot of players fall for this trap. But in the game, black played a better move. He played knight a5, counter-attacking this bishop and aiming to get the pawn back on the next move. White goes bishop b5, check to the king. Black goes c6. So far it's all theory. After an exchange, the bishop is attacked, but instead of defending it, white played a more aggressive move, queen f3. The idea is that the pawn is now pinned down to the rook, and it's actually attacked twice by the bishop and queen. So should black defend it? It's one of the options, but in the game he decided to go all out for his attack, and he just sacrificed the exchange here, sacrificed the rook in the corner, and then played bishop c5. His idea is that, yeah, he's given up some material, but he wants to get ahead in development and create a strong and quick attack. Bishop c5 puts the bishop to an active square, as well as defends this pawn just in case. If white is extremely greedy, he could grab it with a queen, so black defends it just in case. Now, white's little problem is that this queen in the corner can possibly be surrounded and captured by black, and white decided to bring it back, so he plays knight e4. Knight e4 attacks here, a couple pieces, and after the exchange, white manages to bring the queen back. Now it looks like white is actually just ahead in material, and he should be winning. He castles, but black keeps cool, plays rook e8, for now defending the pawn on e5 and also bringing the rook into play. Here white figured out that black probably wants to play bishop b7 on the next move. Notice that it's supported by the knight, therefore black can actually put their bishop here and it would hit the queen. He decided to retreat with the queen and advance, anticipating the move bishop b7, but black played it anyway, ignoring the fact that this pawn is attacked. I mean, black already sacrificed so much that by now he doesn't care, right? He just wants to create that attack. Anyway, white didn't see any immediate danger and decided to grab this pawn on b5 as well. This also hits the bishop, so black has to waste some time retreating back. And white played d3, preparing to develop the rest of his pieces. For now, he's opening up the diagonal for the bishop. And black played rook e6, preparing the rook lift over here so that he can target the g2 square as well as the white king. Now white sees that he's somewhat in trouble. Due to this pin, he can never play f3 and blockade the diagonal. So he'd wish to play this move, but he can't because the pawn is pinned down to the king. He decided to play king h1 to unpin the pawn so that in the next move, if black goes rook g6, white is ready to play f3 and to blockade this diagonal completely. But black found something really creative. He just sacrificed the bishop over there without waiting for white to block the diagonal. And after white king recaptures, here is the real beauty. Like, a lot of players would be tempted to go here rook g6, and that is actually incorrect. That's not the move that black played. It turns out that rook g6 misses the mark because the king can just go there and hide in the center, and it's not very clear for black to continue the attack, also given the fact that black has already sacrificed half of his army. So what did black do in the game? He played a very subtle move, queen a8 check. He kind of fianchettoed his queen and instead of a bishop. And it's a very rare case where you include your queen into the attack from the distant corner of the board. And yet it's the best move and the only move that wins for black. Now, what's the problem? I mean, the king can't move because then it's just a checkmate here, right? Our queen is still doing a great job controlling this diagonal. But of course, instead of that, white could play pawn f3, which seems a lot more resilient. So what can black do now? Well, rook g6 looks like the only move to play, king h1, and for the moment, it looks like white is safe. His king is in the corner, this diagonal is blocked, everything's good. But black actually won another time, surprised white with this remote queen from a8. He actually sacrificed it on f3. White is forced to recapture, and that leads to a beautiful checkmate, rook to g1. So far, black's been stealing the show, and let's give a shot to white. And it's a really funny game. I mean, I don't know, at least I find it funny. And you'll tell me what you think about it. So far so good, we're just developing, d4, opening up the position, white castles, black goes bishop c5. So far it's all natural developing moves, and it's all theory, e5, attacking the knight. There is a very common counter-strike, which is worth knowing, which black played correctly. Instead of retreating the knight, which usually gives white a ton of attack, black should counter-strike with d5. Very powerful move. White attacks the knight, black attacks the bishop. So far black did it right. White traded, now rook e1. Check to the king. Now in these positions, it's usually better for black to cover by the bishop, allowing white to grab this pawn on g7. But king f8 also seems not bad for black, because not only you remove the king from danger, but also you defend this pawn so that if white captures, you can just recapture. Yes, the king seems to be a little bit exposed, but there is no easy way for white to attack it, since most of his pieces are still in the first rank. Now, white played a very creative move. Instead of capturing here, he played bishop g5, not only allowing black to capture this pawn, but even inducing this move. Moreover, it's kind of forced to some extent because the bishop is standing in ambush, getting ready to play pawn takes g7, check to the king, and then grabbing this queen because of this x-ray. Therefore, black captures it, attacking the bishop, and now bishop slides to h6. Now, since our rook is controlling this file, the king has to go there. White actually forced black to make this trade so that his king is cornered now, and white has some interesting attacking opportunities. But it's still not easy for white. It's far from being easy because, the king is also well developed, and again, white is completely passive. But the fun thing about this game is that white just keeps ignoring black completely. Whatever black does, whatever threats black creates, white just doesn't give a damn completely. So here he plays knight c3, which would not require any commentary normally speaking, as moving your queenside knight to c3 is one of the most traditional things to do in an opening, but in this case an obvious question is, hey, black seemed to control this square, didn't he? But white just ignores that. It turns out that black can't capture it. If he does, white then can trade queens along the d-file and sneak into the last rank, and it actually puts together a nice back rank checkmate. Black was prudent, he calculated all that and decided, you know what, I'm gonna go bishop f8 and cover my back rank, as well as to get rid of this annoying bishop from h6. And guess what white did? White ignored black once again, completely. Not only he did nothing about that bishop, but he actually gave up his knight on d4. And black is attacking this square twice, therefore it looks like a blunder and black just grabbed the knight. And white said, okay, you want to grab material, go ahead. And this time he sacrificed the queen. Black could still capture it, but then after black started calculating this, he realized that he can't do that. Because if he captures the queen, white still sneaks into the same back rank motif, with the rook there pinning the bishop, threatening to play rook to f8 on the next move, which would be a checkmate. The only way for black to guard this bishop would be to use his queen, but then white can just keep marching forward, knight d5, deflecting the queen one way or the other. So if queen takes here, then rook takes f8 checkmate, and if queen doesn't do anything, then if black plays any random move, then knight takes f6 would still deflect the queen, that is check to the king, and white could still force this beautiful checkmate. This means that this cocky queen keeps trolling black and there is nothing black can do. However, black still played bishop f5, which seems like a very good move to solidify black's position. This defends this queen on d8, plus the bishop is now always ready to guard the king, and it looks like black is still safe. White played queen f4, this time hitting the bishop. Bishop took on c2, and white once again completely ignored black and played rook d1. Again, normal move otherwise, in this case it just ignores the fact that the rook can be taken. White includes the rook into the attack and, sacrificing the rook. It turns out that black can't take the rook. Just as always, black is offered something which they can't take. Now if they do, rook takes d1, and it turns out that not only we attack the queen, but also queen g4 is a checkmating threat. And black doesn't have that light square bishop which could be placed there on g6 and could cover the king, so queen g4 would be a killing checkmate, in a line like this. Alright, black figured it out, and once again black played a correct move. So I actually kind of feel sorry for black because they're actually a strong player. Black calculated all these complicated variations, always seemed to play the right moves, but just somehow it was a bad day for black because nothing works and white never cares. So bishop d6, this time black attacks the queen, attacks the rook, and what do? Defend one of them? As always, white doesn't give a thing, goes knight e5 as if nothing happened. And black has a nice choice of what he can take, whether it's the rook or the queen. He chose to grab a bigger fish, queen, and now he says, okay, you want material? Hey, get some more. Rook e8 check. This is the final sacrifice, and after the queen take, white finished it off in style with knight f6, which delivered a spectacular checkmate. Here's a quick challenge for you. It is white to play and win. This is actually checkmate in 2 moves. So please think about this, and if you can find the winning variation for white, please write it down in the comments below. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did, and if so, consider subscribing and hitting the bell. It's a little thing for you, but it helps the channel and it makes it easier for me to support you and to help you in the best way possible in the future. Thank you very much and keep crushing it.